Okay, let's get into this. Welcome to the deep dive.
Hey everyone.
Today, we're looking into some really unsettling territory. These are real-life stories, personal accounts, all centered around beaches, coastal areas.
Yeah, those moments where, the place you think is relaxing suddenly turns, unnerving.
Exactly. We've gathered a bunch of these personal stories, ones shared online by people who went through something genuinely strange or frightening near the water.
Things that really stuck with them.
So our mission for this deep dive is to really unpack the details in these accounts. Look at how the tension builds, the specific strange things people described.
We want to help you understand what makes them feel so creepy and maybe see if there are common threads that pop up when you look at them together.
It's about sort of digging into the experiences themselves, more than just reading a scary story. What makes it really linger,
Precisely. We're exploring those times when the line between normal and something else just seems to blur. Often in places we normally link with, like fun and relaxation.
Okay, so let's dive into the first one. It kicks off like a pretty typical teenage night out, but it takes a really sharp, really terrifying turn pretty quick.
Right. The scene is this secluded beach, late at night. You've got two pairs of teenagers. There's the narrator and a girl named Tiffany.
And then his best friend, CJ, with a girl named Gianna.
And the initial plan is, standard teenage stuff. Trying to get some alone time with their dates.
Yeah, the narrator mentions he was focused on Tiffany. He throws in this detail that some guys called her Crazy Tiff.
Apparently something about X is saying she was really hot, but also really crazy.
He kind of dismisses it, though, says it's not really relevant to the story.
Fair enough. But that whole teenage goal gets sidetracked fast.
Right, so they get to the beach. It's empty. CJ and Gianna head off down the beach to find their own spot.
And the narrator and Tiffany, they walk down towards the water, just talking. And then Tiffany points out into the ocean.
Asks him, what is that?
Yeah, and he doesn't see it at first. Maybe thinks she's kidding, But as he gets closer to the water, he spots it.
He describes it as a long, vertically standing object in the water.
A vertical object.
Yeah.
Standing in the ocean at night. That's immediately weird.
Absolutely. And then, as he takes another step closer, it moves.
Oh, wow.
He says he jumped back and told Tiffany kind of quietly, it's a person.
A person?
Yeah.
Just standing in freezing cold water that late? Yeah. That's really bizarre.
Yeah, and he says Tiffany got uncomfortable right away. Felt like whoever it was seemed to be watching them.
That feeling of being watched, that's a key thing here.
It is, and it's enough to make them abandon that spot and move, further down the beach.
Okay, so they try to find a new spot, sit down again. But then Tiffany points something out again, asks if he hears that sound.
And he does. He describes it as a smaller kind of splashing sound, but then it stops almost immediately.
And then what?
They both look out, and Tiffany gasps, the guy is out there again. The narrator's first reaction is he wants to confront him. You could almost picture it, right? Trying to act tough.
Yeah, typical teenage response, maybe.
But Tiffany pleads with him, let's just go mokey. He explains that just means, let's just leave.
Smart move. So they head back towards the car. They figure CJ and Gianna will be there.
But they're not. And that's when the narrator checks his phone, and it just starts blowing up.
The classic no reception zone near the water.
Exactly. So CJ had been texting him this whole time, apparently in a total panic while they were separated.
And those texts must show the escalation, right?
Oh, definitely. They're really chilling because you see how fast things went bad for CJ and Gianna. The first text is just, dude, some weird guy is in the water watching us.
Okay, so it's still a guy at that point. Weird, but human.
Right. But 5 minutes later, the description changes. Yo, some weird deformed-looking guy is stalking us. Get to the car now.
Deformed-looking guy. Okay, that's different, more alarming.
And that shift in the language, it's really telling because in the next texts, it gets even worse. He's talking about being followed by something in the dark.
Something, not someone.
Yeah, he specifically highlights that. Keyword something, not someone, something. Then he texts he's coming to find them, tells the narrator to answer his phone.
Must have been calling frantically.
Yeah, 3 missed calls. Then the last text is just, we're on our way back to the car now, get there.
Wow. That jump from someone to something. That's the core of the creepiness here, isn't it?
I think so. It suggests whatever they encountered just didn't fit into a neat human box anymore.
So the narrator calls CJ back.
Yep. CJ answers, totally out of breath, just asking if they're at the car yet. Less than a minute later, CJ and Gianna stumble out of the darkness.
And CJ tries to explain what they saw.
He does. He describes it as a deformed-looking creature walking on 2 legs.
A creature. Okay, now that's way beyond just a weird guy.
Understandably, the narrator is like, wait, are you messing with me? He tells CJ what he saw, which was a really tall, lanky person just standing in the water.
So, conflicting descriptions. Interesting.
Very. But CJ doubles down, insists that after he got a closer look, it was definitely some kind of deformed humanoid thing.
And the narrator and Tiffany.
They kind of nervously laugh because it sounds so out there, but they also feel like maybe he's serious. There's this heavy feeling about it.
And Gianna confirms CJ's story.
Completely backs him up. And then, just as they're trying to process this, the thing happens that cements the terror for all 4 of them.
What's that?
They hear a scream coming from the direction they just ran from.
Oh no, what kind of scream?
He describes it as some kind of half-human, half-demonic kind of screaming.
Yikes, that sounds absolutely terrifying.
It was enough to make them all pile into the car immediately, no hesitation.
I bet. Just get out of there.
They were apparently frantic in the car at first, firing questions at CJ, but then they just went silent, trying to process what just happened.
How long did this whole encounter last?
He figures everything after he first heard that splashing sound took maybe half an hour. Tops.
Only half an hour. It's incredible how quickly it went from, like you said, awkward teens on a beach to abject terror.
Yeah. And the story, it just leaves you with these really unsettling questions. Like, what about the different descriptions? The tall, lanky person versus the deformed-looking creature.
Were they seeing the same thing, but fear just, like, distorted it differently for each group? Or were there multiple things out there?
It's hard to say. And that chilling change in CJ's text, from someone watching to something following, that feels significant.
It's not just changing a word. It's like he had to completely reclassify the threat in real time.
Yeah.
It implies it just didn't look human anymore up close.
Exactly. Plus that overwhelming feeling of being watched, stalked, which both groups felt independently.
Combined with that specific terrifying scream.
Yeah.
One that sounded, unnatural.
This story really shows how fast your sense of reality can just crumble under pressure. Leaves you wondering if what you saw was even, possible.
And the fact that there's no clear answer for what stalked them in that half hour, that's what makes it so unnerving and memorable, I think.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit, but we're staying coastal. This next story happened on a Florida beach. It involves the narrator and his 2 younger sisters.
Right. He mentions they went to this specific beach pretty often, usually around sunset.
Why sunset?
Simple reasons, really. Fewer people around and you get those amazing views. Sometimes they'd play volleyball, swim, just hang out.
Makes sense. So on this particular evening, his youngest sister, Ksenia, she was 13, really wanted to go for a swim, even though it was starting to get dark.
And the narrator, being the older brother, does the typical thing, gives her a time limit. Okay, 10 minutes.
She runs into the water. He watches her for maybe a minute. And then, well, you know how easily you can get distracted? Especially if you're a teenager yourself watching younger siblings.
Oh, yeah. What happened?
His other sister, the 16-year-old, wanted to play volleyball. There was a net, a ball. They start playing.
Uh-oh. I have a bad feeling about this.
Yeah. The crucial, terrifying moment comes when he glances away from the game and realizes he can't see Ksenia anywhere.
In the water.
Yeah, and it was getting darker, visibility wasn't great. Panic just hits him immediately.
I can only imagine.
He runs into the water, starts swimming around frantically, searching everywhere he thinks she could be, but she's just gone.
Gone. From shallow water where he just saw her. That's terrifying.
It's an absolute nightmare scenario. But then, as he's looking around desperately, he spots something nearby. A boat, described as a big, luxurious boat.
Goes by.
Close enough that he thought he could swim to it.
So he goes for it.
He does. He mentions it took quite a bit of effort to swim out there, and then he had to use this tiny stepladder on the bow to pull himself aboard.
Okay, so he's on this random boat. What happens then?
He hears laughing coming from below deck. He sees a hatch door is open, lights are on down there. So he calls out, hello, help! Silence. Then he calls out again, says he's looking for his sister.
And
then, from down below, he hears Ksenia call his name.
Oh, thank God. The relief must have been huge.
Immense, I'm sure, but probably followed instantly by, intense confusion and suspicion.
Definitely. So he goes down.
He hurries down the stairs into the cabin, and what he finds is, well, it's weird. Ksenia is sitting on a bed, just casually holding a can of Coke. Yeah. And there are 2 grown-ass men sitting opposite each other looking at him.
Oh. That's not good. That changes the whole vibe.
Immediately, the relief just evaporates into dread. He says he instantly grabbed Ksenia, pulled her into his arms.
Smart move. Did the men say anything?
Yeah. One of them smiles at him and says he has a very nice sister.
Ugh. Okay, that's incredibly creepy in that context.
It's totally unsettling. The other man then quickly jumps in, maybe seeing the narrator's reaction, and gives an explanation.
What did he say?
Said they were just offering Ksenia a ride and some snacks because they saw her out in the water all alone.
Right. Plausible, maybe, but feels
Okay.
thin. How did the narrator react?
His reaction says everything. He didn't say a single word to them. Just held on to Ksenia.
Didn't engage at all?
Nope. One of the men asked if they needed a ride back to shore. Still no answer from the narrator.
His only thought was getting her out of there.
Exactly. He just turned to Ksenia and told her to swim back to the beach with him now.
And they did. They just left.
Yep. Got back to shore as fast as they could. And when they looked back, the boat was already far gone into the sunset. Just gone.
Wow. What happened when they got home?
The aftermath is interesting too. His dad was furious, but not really at him for losing sight of her for a minute.
Oh, then what?
He was angry that the narrator didn't get any details, the boat's name, what the men looked like, anything.
Information that could maybe identify them later.
Right. And the narrator admits his dad had a point. But in that moment of crisis, all he could think about was escape, not gathering intel.
Understandable. Fight or flight kicked in. What about Ksenia?
She got punished too and wasn't allowed to go to the beach past sunrise after that. This story, it raises some really disturbing questions, doesn't it? I mean, Ksenia disappearing so fast from shallow water, it almost feels too quick.
It does, like impossibly quick.
Yeah.
And then the convenient appearance of this specific boat, big, luxurious right there. It feels opportune.
Yeah, opportune is a good word. Combined with that weird scene in the cabin, Ksenia with the soda, the two men just sitting there, it feels almost staged. Or just deeply, deeply suspicious.
And the men's behavior seals it. That creepy comment about his sister.
Followed by the quick, maybe too smooth explanation.
And the narrator's gut reaction, just grab her and run, don't talk, don't engage. That instinct speaks volumes.
It really makes you wonder what kind of situation they walked into, or maybe interrupted.
This story really hits home about vulnerability near water, especially as light fades. How fast a normal evening can flip into something potentially really dangerous.
And the narrator's choice, prioritizing escape over information. It's a powerful example of that survival instinct kicking in, even if it leaves those big, troubling questions unanswered about who those men were and what they were actually doing.
It definitely leaves a chill.
Okay, our third and final story for this dive. We're moving slightly away from the water's edge, but still very much coastal. This one's set in a Florida beach house.
Right, a place the narrator visits with his girlfriend, often in the colder months when it's quieter.
He mentions the house had been empty for about a month and a half since their last trip, but the power and water were still on. They kept them on during the winter since they use the place fairly often.
Okay, so they arrive after a long drive. They're totally exhausted, and it's just starting to get dark.
And because they're so beat, they don't do the usual walkthrough, check all the rooms,
Nope. They just grab lounge chairs and head straight down to the beach, which he says is only like 20 seconds away, but just want to unwind immediately.
They're out there on the chairs until it gets really dark, and then his girlfriend nudges him, asks if he left a light on upstairs in the house.
Oh, and had he?
No. They look back at the house, and sure enough, one of the upstairs lights is on.
Okay, that's weird if they didn't turn it on. Maybe faulty wiring.
That might be the first thought, but it gets creepier. Because in the window of that lit room, they see a shadow outlined behind the partially opened curtains.
A shadow, like the person's silhouette.
That's exactly how it hit them. The realization dawned on both of them at the same time. Someone was in that room at that window.
Okay, that's instant terror. Seeing someone in your supposedly empty house that you just arrived at.
Yeah. So the narrator tells his girlfriend, wait here, and runs back to the house. As he gets to the back doors, he shifts gears, goes quiet, slides the door open and shut really silently. He mentions being barefoot helped him tiptoe easily. He gets inside, reaches the stairway.
Does he hear anything?
He's halfway up the stairs when he hears it. A door shutting upstairs.
Okay, confirmation. Someone is definitely inside and moving around.
Exactly. So now he goes up the rest of the stairs quicker. He gets to the landing, sees the door to the room where the light was on is now open, but the light itself is off.
So they turn the light off after being spotted.
Seems like it. He goes into the room, but instead of flipping the main light switch, he grabs a flashlight that was sitting on a shelf. Smart move. Maybe keeps the element of surprise.
Right, tactical thinking.
Then he remembers something. The closet door in that room. He recalls it being shut when they first glanced in, so he figures that must have been the door he heard close just now.
Makes sense. So he approaches the closet.
Yeah. He turns off his flashlight again, tiptoes over, and puts his ear right up against the closet door. Listens hard. Nothing. Nothing but silence in the room and on the other side. Just dead quiet.
But he knows someone went in there.
He's pretty sure. He feels like he had to confront this. So he braces himself, yells, and yanks the closet door open. Ready for anything.
And what's inside?
Well, initially, in the darkness, he thinks it's empty. He sweeps the flashlight beam around to be sure. And yeah, the closet's empty.
What? But he heard the door close.
Exactly. But just as he's processing that, he hears a sound outside the room. A creak in the floorboards.
The intruder must have slipped out.
That's what he thinks. He runs out into the hallway, fully expecting to see the intruder making a break for it. But it's just his girlfriend.
Oh, she didn't wait on the beach.
Nope. He says he got mad at her for a second for not staying put, but now she's here, so he tells her what happened, and they decide to search the upstairs together.
Okay, 2 against 1 may be safer.
Did they find anyone?
They checked thoroughly. All 3 bedrooms, every closet, the bathroom. Nothing. No one.
So then they checked downstairs.
The entire downstairs.
Yeah.
Every room, every closet again. Still absolutely no one.
Baffling. So what did they conclude? Their only conclusion was that whoever was inside must have somehow slipped past them and gotten out of the house while they were searching upstairs or something.
Maybe. Seems unlikely they wouldn't have heard or seen something, though.
I agree. So they lock all the doors. Then they do a walk around the outside and inside, looking for any signs of a break-in, forced windows, anything like that, or anything missing.
Why?
And this is where it gets really strange. They found neither of that. No forced entry. Nothing stolen.
So, how did the person get in?
Yeah.
And why were they there if not to steal?
Exactly. Huge questions. But despite all this, they were just so exhausted from the drive and the adrenaline dump, they decided to just go to bed.
Seriously, after all that, just go to bed.
Sounds crazy, right? But he emphasizes how drained they were. But the story isn't quite over.
Oh no, what else?
Before they can actually fall asleep, something happens that is just pure nightmare fuel. They hear a sound, a click, under our bed.
Under the bed they're in. No way.
Yes. His girlfriend whispers, asking if he heard it too. He did. He gets out of bed, grabs the flashlight again, and looks underneath.
Don't tell me.
And there he is, the intruder, laying under our bed, looking right back at him. He says they were face to face for about a second.
Oh my God. That's horrifying. Just absolutely horrifying. Face to face with someone hiding under your bed.
It's hard to imagine anything more terrifying in your own home. The intruder then scrambles out from under the bed,
Takes a run for it.
makes a break for the front door. The narrator tries to chase him, but being barefoot, he couldn't catch him once the guy got outside. Didn't get a good look at his face in that brief second either.
Unbelievable. So the guy escapes again.
Yep. And then they search the house again, this time really expecting to find things missing.
Man.
Still nothing. Surprisingly, nothing was stolen. They still couldn't even figure out how he broke in.
This is just bizarre. No break-in, nothing stolen, just terrorizing them.
It seems like it. And maybe the strangest detail of the entire story comes next.
What's that?
They didn't call the cops.
They didn't call the police. After finding someone hiding under their bed.
Nope. He says they simply moved on and did our best to enjoy the rest of our vacation.
I don't even know what to say to that. That decision is almost as baffling as the intruder himself.
Right. This story just piles on the questions that have no logical answers. The light, the shadow, the disappearing act, only to reappear in the most terrifying spot possible.
And the complete lack of motive, at least a conventional one. No forced entry, no theft. Why? Why hide under the bed specifically?
It makes no sense from a typical intruder perspective, and then the choice not to involve the authorities. That feels incredibly strange. It pushes the whole event beyond just a weird break-in.
It really does. It leaves you wondering what was really going on there. What kind of person hides under a bed like that, and what kind of person experiences that and decides not to report it?
It really highlights the unpredictable, deeply violating feeling of encountering the unknown, especially in a place that's supposed to be your safe haven, your own home, or in this case, home away from home.
Definitely a story that sticks with you because it's so unsettlingly illogical.
So we've walked through 3 pretty different stories, but they all share this unsettling quality. When we step back and look at them together, some common threads definitely emerge, don't they?
Yeah, they do. First off, the setting and timing seem important. All three are near the ocean or on coastal properties. And the really weird stuff tends to happen at night or twilight.
That time when visibility is low, places feel more isolated maybe. That sort of in-between time, day and night, land and sea, it feels significant.
It does. And then there are the figures or presences themselves. They're consistently hard to pin down, hard to identify clearly.
Right. A tall person morphs into a deformed creature. An unknown something stalks people in the dark. You have these mysterious men on a boat, acting suspiciously.
And in the last one, the intruder is just a shadow, then a fleeting face, a presence under the bed. But ultimately, they remain unknown, unexplained.
There's also that powerful sense running through all of them of being watched or targeted or invaded.
Absolutely. The first two explicitly involve feeling watched or stalked near the water. The third is this profound violation of personal space, safety, right inside the home.
And in every case, the situation just escalates so quickly, from normal or maybe slightly odd to full-blown terror in a matter of minutes.
Yeah, the speed is notable. And maybe the biggest connection is the lack of clear answers or neat resolutions. We're just left hanging.
Totally. We still don't know what exactly was in the water in Story 1 or what those men were really up to in Story 2.
Or how the intruder got in, why he was there, and why the couple didn't call the cops in Story 3. These aren't mysteries that get solved.
They all seem to tap into that feeling of vulnerability, too. In places we usually think of as familiar, even say if a beach you go to often, your own house or vacation home.
And suddenly that safety feels really fragile, like it can be shattered by something unexpected, something unknown.
And even though the types of encounters are different, maybe something non-human, maybe predatory humans, maybe a bizarre home invasion.
The emotional roller coaster for the people involved feels really similar across the board. That quick slide into nervousness, panic, confusion, real fear.
And they're all left with this lingering sense of having gone through something deeply unsettling that just doesn't quite fit neatly into how we think the world works.
Yeah, these accounts definitely stick with you. It's precisely because of those loose ends, those unanswered questions, that feeling that something just stepped outside the bounds of normal explanation.
Makes you think differently about those quiet moments by the water, maybe, or arriving somewhere seemingly empty after dark.
For sure. It leads to that final thought, maybe. How do these kinds of unexplained, unsettling experiences change how we see places we thought were safe? Like that familiar beach, or even just walking into your own home.
What does it really mean when the most frightening things happen but leave behind no physical evidence, no logical reason? Just questions and that lingering feeling of unease.
It's definitely something to mull over. Maybe next time you find yourself near the coast after sunset, or even just locking your door at night.
Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the unsettling side of the shore.
Yeah, thanks everyone.